Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But first, we only got until the 18th of this month for the voting period of the CBC Awards. That's right, we've been nominated for 6 Comic Book Community Awards. We've been nominated for Favorite Channel, Best Channel Overall, Best Beard and Hair, as well as Best Ongoing Series for the Weekly Comic Book Review, Best Collaboration for the Monthly Comic Book Review Panel, as well as Best Comic Book Review. Please go down to the link in the description below, cbcawards.org, and vote for any YouTuber who you think is deserving, including us here in PCP land. Alright, we always start with the pick of the week, and this week's pick of the week, Petrol Head, issue number 1 from Image Comics. Totally not on my radar. I have read Rob Williams' work before, and nothing's ever really stood out to me from his work. I am not familiar with Pi Par, who is the artist on this book, but I loved it. It was high octane, it was dramatic energy, it was scintillating in pace, it was absolutely breakneck, fast-paced, comic book action awesomeness. That's what this book is. It's a really cool world with a lot of cool stuff established. So it's a world in which humanity, or should I say the Earth, the planet, is basically uninhabitable, right? But the remaining few bits of humanity survive in these big domed cities. And part of the entertainment in these big domed cities, in this post-apocalyptic barren wasteland that the planet is now, are basically building robots to go on these crazy, wacky races. Think about the cartoon Wacky Races, but they're robots that are in these races to entertain humanity. But then there's also all this kind of stuff about the class structure of this world, including the class of these robots, how mistreated they possibly are, but it doesn't ever feel on the nose, doesn't feel super cliche or obvious or anything like that. But it's a cool concept that really has some interesting characters. By the way, now in this world, these robots, their battles, their chases or whatever, they're kind of not even around anymore. But there are still robots that are out there who are living their lives in a way. Anyway, it's a cool world and it's a cool concept. But the reason why this made it to the pick of the week was that artwork. I mean, the world building, the character work, all of that was cool. But the artwork, oh my goodness. Action sequences in comics can be very difficult to portray, especially vehicle chases, races, stuff like that. Oh my goodness, this book does such an amazing job of fleshing out this world through the story and through the artwork, providing high energy action and making everything feel fast-paced, making everything feel explosive, and the color choices are so freaking top-notch. I am not familiar with the artist at all, Pi Par or Pear, but it is absolutely awesome. Brilliant color, brilliant choices, great dynamic perspectives, such an interesting, super cool book. It's a little bit of a light week. Definitely might want to try this one out. It's from Image Comics, Rob Williams, and Pi Par, Petrol Head. Issue number 1. We also got Transformers issue number 2 from Skybound. Daniel Warren Johnson, Mike Spicer on the coloring. And if you liked Transformers issue number 1, no reason why you're not going to like Transformers issue number 2. It continues that story. Amazing, highly charged kinetic artwork from Daniel Warren Johnson. A lot of great texture, a lot of great action sequences. But one of my favorite bits about Transformers in general right now in the Daniel Warren Johnson series and in issue number 2 in particular is how out of their element the Transformers are. They're in a soft, vulnerable, fragile, squishy world, and it's a really interesting juxtaposition. And we've seen things before where they kind of play on that, but not in quite the nuanced way that Daniel Warren Johnson does in Transformers number 2. I'm invested not just in the story of the Transformers, this reimagining, if you will, but also the human characters. and I have never been able to say that. Transformers absolutely rocked. Then we got the Scorched here with issue number 23. We got John Layman now as the scripter on the Scorched. Now that this is an issue basically to wrap up all the She-Spawn stuff that's been building up. Sean Lewis was setting up. She died. She got brought back by Gaia. She's like on the side of Green World, but it wraps all of that up in a very nice kind of tidy bow and sets up things to come. But it was a solid issue of Spawn Scorched. This has actually kind of started going down a little bit. It's probably, in my opinion, the weakest of the 4 Spawn titles, but it's still fun, and for $2.99 cardstock cover and a great Dan Panosian cover, excuse me, you can't go wrong. Then we got Creepshow Volume 2, Issue number 3. This one's got a story by Zoe Thorogood. Really loved the artwork in her story. The story itself was interesting. It was alright. It had some nice ideas that it was playing around with, but it never kind of really fully hit me with that punch, but I really did like her artwork. And between this and that Hack Slash book she did, I think I got to get into her work. I've met her. She's adorable. She's super cool, very friendly, very outgoing. Seems like a great personality, but I've never read It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth, but I really think that I need to because I really like her work. Then the second story, I should say, it was decent. It was a little bit more cliche, a little bit more like with that punchy kind of vibe to it, but not as interesting of an idea as the Zoe Thorogood one, and that one was Joel Fairley and Goran Sudzuka. So Creepshow's all right. It's maintaining my interest enough. Each one has definitely at least had like one story or one creator that brought something a little bit more interesting to the table, but it's okay. It's okay. Creepshow is still just okay. Dark Ride is here with issue number 9. This is a big revelatory issue. We're focused on the daughter. Basically, Dark Ride is about a Disney World type place that's horror themed. So it's like Devil's Land or something like that. Instead of Disneyland, it's Devil's Land. And maybe the dude who started it, the Walt Disney, if you will, of this piece, maybe he's done some nefarious, demonic kind of dealings and plottings and plannings to kind of get this park to be as successful as it is. His children are kind of the focus of this series. He has a daughter named Halloween. She is the focus mostly of this issue. We reveal more about her past, but there's a big moment for readers of this book at the end where a lot of stuff gets put into its proper perspective. Dark Ride number 9. I'm still loving it, still having fun with that. Midlife, or How to Hero at 50, issue number 2. I loved issue number 1. Blew me away a month ago on a light week, kind of like this week as the pick of the week. But issue number 2 carries that momentum forward. It's got an incredibly charged sense to the artwork where it has this energy that just leaps off the page. It's about a dude who's middle-aged. He's like 50 years old. He's a firefighter, but he's always been scared of fire. He doesn't feel like he lives up to the status of his father, who was this like badass firefighter or something like that. And then at the end of the first issue, he's in a building on fire and he's safe. He realizes he's invulnerable to fire. So this whole time he's been stressing about his life, stressing about his job. He's actually got some firepower of some kind of sort, right? So of course, what any other nerd would do at 50 once he realizes he has superpowers is he talks to his friends and they come up with the idea of becoming a superhero. But it's nice, it's light, it's got great dialogue. The dialogue and the artwork have such a fast pace to it that is such a joy to read. I was impressed with issue number 1, just as impressed with issue number 2. It continues that momentum in a very fascinating way. Phantom Road is here with issue number 6 after a hiatus. I do believe it's been on hiatus for a while. Phantom Road is Jeff Lemire, Gabriel Walta Hernandez, and Hernandez Walta, I should say. Jordi Belair on the coloring. It's about this dude. He's a truck driver. He comes across a hitchhiker, a passenger who's with him now. There are these weird, like, beings, like these haunted beings on the road. There's an upside down. There's something going on. I've found because of the break, I find myself more disconnected from this book than I do Jeff Lemire's other works. However, even though feeling a little bit disconnected between what's been going on and what's been building up in this book, as I'm reading issue number 6, the character work is still there. The pace of this book is still there. The moody and creepy atmosphere is still there. So it still works for me, but maybe it's time to grab those original issues, read them again, and then jump back into this one. Let's jump over to Marvel. We got Punisher issue number 1. This is a brand new Punisher book from Marvel Comics, written by David Pepose with artwork by Dave Wachter and Dan Brown. I liked it. So most people are going to know what this book is, and it's setting up a brand new Punisher. So Frank Castle, his last run, the 12-issue series by Jason Aaron, Jesus Saiz, and Paul Azaceta, I really liked that run. I thought it was one of the best Punisher books I had ever read. This is not Frank Castle. This is not continuing Frank Castle's story whatsoever. It is a new guy who, born from tragedy, has taken on the mantle of the Punisher. But it's not in a overwrought, stupid, dumb kind of way. This character, his journey, the arc, the decisions he makes, it all seems to make sense. And there's nothing like, he's not setting out to steal the Punisher's identity. It's just kind of what's thrust upon him in some kind of way because of the way his costume looks or whatever. But he's got a history, he's got a past. The artwork at certain times felt just a bit... It felt like it would be okay artwork, like serviceable, but then there are other moments, like when this big beastly dude shows up at the end, the artwork gets super gnarly, great texture, grit, and detail to it, so I had a lot of fun with this. I was very trepidatious. I always trust David Pepose. He is a fantastic writer. He does great jobs with great concepts and great characters. However, I didn't think that he was being set up for success here because most people are going to see it as, that's not my Punisher. Why has he got blonde hair? Who's this new guy? What's up with the weapons? What's up with the costume? I'm going to tell you this. This worked. It worked for me. It worked as an origin for this new Punisher. I'm excited, and I honestly think that if you're a fan of the old school Punisher stuff, no reason to skip out on this book. It is right in that same identity, but at the same time, different enough to distinguish itself from what came before with Frank's story. Punisher number 1 was fantastic. I loved it. Then we got Thanos, Return of the Mad Titan, issue number 1, a new Thanos book written by Christopher Cantwell. I like Christopher Cantwell's indie work. When he works for Marvel, I don't typically usually like it. This issue was kind of like that. It was just okay. Most of this issue focuses on this new girl, some kind of a weird thing about like the Bachelorette and death or something. Like, to be honest, I was really dulled out reading most of this book. And when it finally gets to the punch where Thanos shows up and we start getting an inkling of an idea as to what's going on, it was too late for me, honestly. The artwork was just kind of okay. The story was just kind of okay. I really thought that the beginning, the first half of this book was a little bit overwrought. Not a whole lot happens, and when it does finally start happening, I'm already checked out. So Thanos number 1 didn't really do it for me. Then we've got What If Dark, The Tomb of Drcula, issue number 1. It's a one-shot comic book. They've been doing this series of what if one-shots, like darker versions of Carnage or Moon Knight or Venom or whatever, right? They're just your typical what if book. This one is a Tomb of Dracula book, so it's playing with some stuff from the Marv Wolfman, Gene Colan, Tomb of Dracula book. It's about Blade. It's basically, what if Dracula bit Blade back in the day and turned him into more of a full-on vampire or even a more powerful daywalker? To be honest, it didn't do much for me. I did not like the artwork. I did not like the story. Did not like the pace and the flow of it. Even though I'm the hugest TOD fan, it just didn't work for me, and I have high expectations when it comes to this stuff. However, I will give Art Germ the pick or the cover of the week for that amazing cover of a character who you do not see in this book, but it doesn't matter, because if you buy that cover, do you really care? All right, then we got Gods, issue number 2. This is from Jonathan Hickman, Valerio Schiti. This was all right. It was decent. You know, the more time that has passed between Gods number 1 and right now, the more I actually kind of appreciate that book. I did, at the time, say it was a little long, it was pretty expensive, but for what? Like, what's it setting up? It's setting up this idea that there's a natural order of things, there's the powers that be, these two opposing cosmic forces, there are agents who work for them, there's this dude who was married to a woman, they both work for these opposite factions, and it splits their marriage apart. Okay, there we go. Also, this has just been the deal in the Marvel Universe for a long time. All right, fair enough. Let's see what happens. Because that first issue was a really good, solid, kind of one-and-done story. The second issue, what I liked about it was that it starts building out from that first issue and starts setting up more of the world building, start setting up more of where the flow of this story is going to go, what the actual point is. But in the midst of doing all of that, doesn't necessarily do any more character work, except for it does introduce a new character. She will probably be important, but it just didn't feel like anything really happened. Now, I know that something happened in this book. Trust me, I read it, I know. Things moved along. However, it doesn't feel like a complete issue. It kind of feels like it could have been paced or structured a little bit differently and made it a little bit more appealing. There are great ideas and concepts in this book. I liked the dialogue. I liked the flow of it for the most part, but I just don't feel like it had enough oomph. And that's what I felt about issue number 1. But compared to issue number 1, there's hardly any oomph in this book. It's basically just Hickman threading out these ideas, spreading out these characters, introducing some new characters and concepts, and then just kind of like letting it sit there for next issue. Like, it was all right, but for $4.99, in the midst of everything being so expensive now, like what are we doing? Why do we feel like this book's holding itself back? Why do I feel like that? I don't know. Amazing Spider-Man is here with issue number 37. It's another rap book. I don't like this character. He's a leftover from Dark Reign, the Limbo stuff or whatever. He's like this weird cartoonish version of Peter Parker that's backwards and demonic. I don't know. It's just so annoying to me. It's so obnoxious to me. I did not like the last issue. I did not like this issue. There is some setup in here for the gang war. Everything else, though, is rec-rap bullshit. I did not like it. And guess what? There's going to be another issue of it. There's going to be another issue of it. Marvel Unleashed issue number 4 here. This is the final issue of this Kyle Starks penned series that has been too good. Like, it's been way better than it has any rights to be. This is basically the animals of the Marvel Universe against Blackheart. Like, what? That seems so silly, and it should not be charming. It should not be profound. It should not be a gut punch of emotion here in the final issue, but that's exactly what it is. Kyle Starks and company has done a fantastic job with this book. It's a book that has taken itself seriously, but at the same time it knows what it's doing, and it knows the concept, and it's playing around with that in a humorous way, but it is not holding anything back as far as the emotional punches go. Marvel Unleashed issue number 4. Man, I loved that series. Let's jump over to DC. And from DC, we have Superman 78, The Metal Curtain, issue number 1. This is continuing the continuation of the Superman 78 world, right? So Superman 78, Christopher Reeve, great movie, directed by Richard Donner. They did a sequel, directed kind of by Richard Donner, also kind of by Richard Lester. I prefer the Donner cut, whatever, but the last Superman 78 series was basically what we should have gotten for Superman 3. Like, it was Brainiac and all this kind of stuff. In this one, it's about the Soviet Union. They're trying to deal with their response to Superman putting something together. It's got a different artist. I think Wilfredo Torres did the first one. Gavin Guidry does the artwork in this one. But it's got that classic solid line work. It's a really great story. It features Lois Lane, the Daily Planet, Superman, and an introduction of a very popular Superman villain, of a known Superman villain who's never been introduced into the movies before, and this is totally something that would have been great for a Superman 4. So view this as the Superman 4 we could have gotten. So there you go. Anyway, Superman 78, The Metal Curtain. I really did like that one. Then we got Batman 139. This kicks off the Mind Bomb story. Batman has been possessed by a multiverse of Zor-N-Ars. He has completely gone off the rocker. He's disconnected from the Bat family as a result of the Batman Catwoman Gotham War, which I thought had a great start, but a really poor finale. But this was a really solid issue. Basically, Batman has decided, let's go after the Joker. It's playing around with the Three Jokers stuff, which is interesting, and making that Three Jokers book by Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok seem a little bit more important than it seemed, because it seemed like the reveal of Three Jokers was such a plug into continuity and was such a big deal. And then they did the book and it just kind of felt like it came and went. But now we're referencing that again. But the big thing about this issue is Jorge Jimenez is back on the artwork. The artwork is great. There's a lot of visual representation of things like Killing Joke that I appreciated. But yes, it's the third arc of Chip Zdarsky. Time to do the Joker. It seems what everybody does with their third arc now. When they get to Batman, they do a story. Gotham's been different. Here's something you didn't know about. Oh, then let's go right into the Joker. But Batman 139, I liked it. Redeems itself a little bit from the ending of the Batman Catwoman Gotham War. Birds of Prey is here with issue number 3. I'm going to keep this short and simple, because I have the same opinion on this book that I've had, and it's only solidified itself. I like the story. I like these characters. I like Kelly Thompson's use of these characters. I like how these characters are working together, for instance. I like Leonardo Romero's choices of his lines. I like the composition on the page. The coloring in this book throws me off. I'm done with this book. I enjoy these characters. I enjoy these characters together. I enjoy the story. I enjoy Leonardo Romero. But the coloring on this book, it's like giving me a headache watching this, like reading it. It's like fuzzy. This is what I said on Rockin Robbie Live on the DC Sneak Peek on Sunday. I said, this book is kind of like, when you put on 3D glasses, not the polarized ones, but the old school ones that are like red and green or blue and green, and you're wearing those in real life, and everything's got this slight, I don't know, this like shadow to it, and it's weird and off-putting, and it can be headache-inducing. That's what this book's coloring does to me. I'm done with it. I'm tired of it. Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville. Issue number 3, though, was delightful. Such a freaking treat. Fire and Ice are in Smallville. Superman wants them there so they can kind of stay out of trouble. Former JLI members, if you liked the Justice League run from Keith Giffen, from J.M. DeMatteis, from Kevin Maguire, this fits right in that kind of vein and tone. But the book, even though it's silly, even though it's a little bit of a romp, even though it's a little saucy at times, it is filled with heart and actual story and thematic material and great character work. And even though it's not taking itself very seriously, it doesn't mean that it's not a serious book. And I've just been enjoying this book more and more and more as it goes. I like the artwork, very clean, very animated kind of feeling, but I really like the story and the usage of these characters in this setting. Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville, issue number 3. I'm digging it. Poison Ivy, issue number 16, is the best issue of Poison Ivy I have ever read. G. Willow Wilson has taken this book from something that I was very curious but slightly nervous and cautious about into a must-read. The artwork by Takara is absolutely fantastic. It's got this kind of texturized grit to it that really adds this level of, I don't know, it just adds a level of texture to the story through the artwork that I really like. It gives it this kind of raw kind of feeling, and a little bit more of a visceralness to it, right? But this is kind of like a one-and-done story about Poison Ivy's been infected with this, I don't know, this mushroom, this fungi or something, and it's what she's been dealing with throughout this entire series. And in this one, she actually reflects on how her actions have affected a normal dude, and we get to see some time in his life and affected by her, and just the juxtaposition of those two stories worked so freaking well for me. And if you've been loving Poison Ivy, you're going to love the hell out of that issue. I thought it was great. Shazam is here with issue number 5, wrapping up this first arc. This has been a great book. Superhero comics the way it should be done, by Mark Waid and Dan Mora. And who's the artist, or who's the colorist? Because it's not Tamara Bonvillain. The colors, I don't have a colorist labeled here. Oh, here we go. Alejandro Sanchez. Okay, really like the artwork. We got Mary Marvel involved in the story. Basically, Shazam has been taken over by the gods who give him the abilities. Shazam, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Mercury. This is Mercury's turn. They've all been taking their turns, manipulating him and twisting him around. It's a natural conclusion to that, but it's fun. It's big. It's giant. It's superhero action, delivered by Dan Mora. You know we love that here. From Boombox, we have Zawa and the Belly of the Beast. This is a new one from Michael Dialynis, who is the artist along with writer James Tynion, who is the co-creator of The Woods and what's that book called? Wind, right? So this is a new story, a new book, and it's interesting. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I really like the artwork. Kind of a cartoony approach, but it has a little bit of texture and grit to it, right? And a little bit of a scratchiness to it that I really do dig. The first issue didn't pack too much, though, information about who this character is. It's a world in which it's illegal to, like, grow plants and trees and stuff, and all of the food, the whole food industry is run by this dude who's, like, the mayor of this world, this village, this town, or something like that, and he gives everybody these shitty, like, fast food burgers and stuff like that. But this is about a kid whose dad was, like, this great chef. Before all this happened, they're after real ingredients, but they're very hard to find. They're basically, like, illegal, you know? So there's that story about the haves and the have-nots, and I really like the usage of food as the perspective on that. That's really cool. But then there's this idea of, like, the Gobblegeist or something like that, this mythical creature who's in this world who will come after him, and that part starts getting a little bit of fuzziness to it, but the story is good, the characters are solid, the world being built up is good, but it didn't quite go over the hump into full engagement for me. However, I did find it non-boring, I found it exciting, and for the most part, I really enjoyed the artwork. So Zaw and the Belly of the Beast, issue number 1. Then we got Empath, number 1 from BlackBox Comics. This one is written by Brian Hawkins, with artwork by Deborah Carita. I liked this book. I thought it was pretty solid. It's about this dude. He's a vigilante. There's reasons for him being a vigilante. We'll soon find out even more about that, I'm sure. But he's an empath. So not only can he feel the emotions off of other people, but he can kind of absorb those emotions. So it's a really interesting kind of take on a vigilante where they can go and feel the hatred in this person who's committing these crimes, completely know they're in the right about stopping it or something like that. However, he can get too amped up on somebody's anger. He can get too ramped up on anybody's feelings, and it's something that he has to fight back. So while he's trying to save the day, he's in danger of losing his shit, right? So I like the story, I like the implications, I like the thematic material there. Artwork was solid, and overall I found it to be a quite an engaging first issue from BlackBox Comics. Then we got Army of Darkness Forever, issue number 2. I first got to read this like a few weeks ago. We had Tony Fleece on the channel. Love Tony, such a cool dude. Co-creator of Stray Bullets. Not Stray Bullets, Stray Dogs. Stray Bullets, completely different book. Tony Fleece has nothing to do with that, as far as I'm aware. Anyway, Army of Darkness Forever continues the direct sequel to the original ending of Army of Darkness. That's right, the original ending, not the theatrical ending, but like what's known as the director's cut or the bootleg edition or Army of Dark, like Ash, Bruce Campbell as Ash versus the Army of Darkness, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the original movie, the original ending, the deleted original alternate ending, Ash sleeps too long, and he wakes up in, like, the year 2093, right? Into a post-apocalyptic world. The story picks up from there, but it also picks up from the theatrical ending from Army of Darkness, and it starts giving us a little bit of ideas as to how this could possibly be. It also picks up from the 1300 era from Army of Darkness after Ash leaves, what happened there. So 3 different stories across 3 different times, honoring the original ending of Army of Darkness. Tony understands this property, he understands this character, he understands this world, he understands this franchise, and he's giving us a really solid second issue. If you thought the first issue was mostly repetition of what we had already seen before, issue 2 is where it starts carving out its own path and its own interesting, engaging ideas as to why this book even exists. Alright, so that's what I read. A light week, like I said, but that's what I thought. Army of Darkness Forever, a really great follow-up to the original alternate ending of the movie. Empath, really cool ideas from BlackBox Comics. Zaw and the Belly of the Beast, really liked this book, but it needed to go a little bit further to truly captivate me. Shazam number 5 wrapping up its first arc in superheroic, bombastic fashion. Poison of Ivy, the best issue, the Poison of Ivy. Poison Ivy, best issue of that series I've read yet. Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville is way better than it deserves to be. Birds of Prey, the coloring has done it. I am out. I'm done. Batman, Jorge Jimenez is back, and I love the artwork, and some interesting stuff Chip Zdarsky's doing here with the next confrontation between Batman and the Joker. Superman 78, The Metal Curtain, the Superman 4 we should have gotten. Marvel Unleashed, such a great ending to a book that is way better than it has any right to be. Amazing Spider-Man number 37 sucked. Right? Gods number 2 didn't have enough oomph. Does that make sense? Tomb of Drcula, cover of the week, but didn't really do anything for me story-wise. Thanos didn't really do anything for me story-wise as well. Punisher, though, I really liked the introduction of this new character. I thought it was pretty solid. Phantom Road, I'm feeling a little bit disconnected from it, but it still flowed really nice. Midlife, or How to Hero at 50, number 2, continuing the momentum from a first issue that was fantastic. Dark Ride, developing this story even further and these characters in intriguing ways. Creep Show, Volume 2, issue number 3, Zoe Thorogood. I think I need to get into her work. Scorched, number 23, wrapping up the She-Spawn stuff and setting up what's to come. Transformers number 2, doing what Transformers do, doing what Daniel Warren Johnson do. But Petrol Head, issue number 1 was the pick of the week. I love the concepts, love the characters, love the execution. That artwork is absolutely amazing. And since I forgot to mention it, smell of the week goes to the Empath, issue number 1. It's kind of got this like citrusy, fruity kind of vibe to it as far as the smell goes. Anyway, that's what I read. That's what I thought. That's what I'm digging. What are you reading? What are you thinking? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop, boom.